Hello, everybody, and welcome back. My name's Don Arleth, and it's time for World Talks here on TVP World. Polish officials claim that GPS disruptions recently observed in the Baltic region are caused by Russia's hybrid sabotage operations. Such disruptions have been seen increasingly since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine and pose threats to international shipping and commercial air travel and have the potential to put lives at risk. On Monday, a Ryanair flight from Alicante, Spain to the northern Polish city of Bydgoszcz was redirected to Poznan in the west part of Poland due to navigation problems. So what can be done to counter this active threat? To discuss, I'm joined by Paulina Piasecka, director of the Terrorism Research Center at Collegium Civitas. Paulina, thank you very much for joining us tonight on World Talks.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Now, where do we begin here? I guess, it's all fun and games when you have, Russia interfering like this until a major catastrophe or disaster is caused and hundreds of people are killed. In the event that this would happen, would Russia be held to account in any which way or form?
Well, that would probably be a question to be asked to the authorities that would be able to attribute such an attack to a particular country, because so far what we know is what our officials do say, but it's especially in case of something tragic happening and potential international court proceedings, it would be about the burden of the proof of stating that, yes, it was actually an action of the state and not, say, for example, individual hacker who did mess with the international navigation systems. So that is a huge question of our ability to not only detect, but then after the fact to collect the digital evidence, protect said evidence, and be able to present it in front of the court.
Right. Now, let's go ahead and listen to this soundbite from Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz, Polish defense minister.
Several weeks ago, a special safety committee convened to address this issue. General Maciej Klisz, the operational commander, prepared a series of recommendations for military aviation. We also provided all the information to civil aviation, flight control, and the Polish Air Navigation Services Agency. We are witnessing these disturbances. They are occurring over the Baltic Sea, affecting our NATO allies in the Baltic and Nordic countries. We are responding. According to our sources, these actions are related to the Russian Federation's activities, including sabotage.
Okay, so this isn't only a Polish problem. This problem extends to all countries that are in the Baltic Sea region. Can you give us an idea of the size and the scale of the threat?
Well, it is definitely international, and we do need to remember that it's not only about the Baltic Sea region. I mean, similar reports about the activities that are connected with disruption of the GPS signal, and not only the disruption of the GPS navigation, but also the attacks of hackers against the navigational data and the mapping of the positions of sea vessels. Do happen not only in the region of the Baltic Sea, but also, as it is reported by Romanian authorities, in the region of the Black Sea. And so it is a huge scale. It is connected, at least by some analysts, with the concurrent activities that were connected with the Ukrainian attack against the drone attacks against the Russian military bases. And so it might be an attempt to discourage or to provide some sort of the proof of ability in this anti-drone war that might be caused by the Ukrainian very, very effective attack against the Russian military.
Right. I've actually personally seen it in eastern Ukraine, especially when you're near the Russian border and you turn on maps, you can suddenly see that you're in Russia. Obviously, you're not, but it shows that this is, well, actually, it's been happening for quite some time now. How do we respond to threats such as these? Does NATO allies have their own system? Would we redeploy or would we retaliate in a similar manner?
The decision would be definitely political. It's not only about messing with the GPS signals, it's the wider problem of attribution with any sort of attacks within the widely understood cyberspace. When you don't have a direct proof of engagement of the state, you can only make a political decision regarding whether or not we were attacked and whether or not it is treated as a casus belli or the proof of the beginning of the official war. Now, I don't think that any activities that would disrupt the GPS signal without the direct and the large-scale effects in the form of the loss of human lives, health, or the assets of any NATO states would really be a cause for war. There would, however, be treated as a part of the hybrid warfare, in which what we need to remember in particular, the attack against the civilian population, the attack against the civilian infrastructure might be used as this form of blurring of the lines between the state of peace and the state of war. So it's not exactly the question about whether or not the military sea vessels or the military aircrafts would be able to deal with such disruption. They probably have the redundant solutions and redundant systems for navigation. It's the question about how well we are prepared to protect the civilian infrastructure and civilian assets from this sort of disruption.
Right. Well, that also, we were discussing this earlier in the newsroom. We were wondering, what happens when you have a private, sailboat out on the Baltic Sea and they can't navigate because they're dependent on electronics? Do they need to have the old school paper charts as backup so that nothing bad happens to even private vessels at sea?
I'd love to believe that still passing the exam that allows you to steer in the open international waters does force you to pass also the exam from the traditional navigation along the stars and the sky and the traditional use of maps and navigational charts. However, it is a huge incentive to talk about our general dependence on electronic devices and the effectiveness of the use of any sort of cyber weapons in modern war. Yes, I think we might feel threatened by the potential adverse consequences towards the civilian vessels and civilian infrastructure and also civilians per se, mainly because of the fact that even though they might not cause a huge scale of losses in life or the assets, they might be effectively leveraged against the sort of trust of the public in the effectiveness and reliability of the state security and safety services.
I'd like to get back to the causes of this. I mean, because we suspect that these are Russian, an active Russian hybrid threat. But I'll play devil's advocate for just a moment. Mm-hmm. Recently, a major airline in the United States had deployed Starlink for their flights so that they could provide internet service to their passengers on board airplanes. But they have since taken that service out because it was causing major disruptions in navigation and GPS location and what have you. We see Starlink deployed all around the world right now. Could maybe this be a source? Or the fact that we're using so many digital devices, they're everywhere, they're embedded into everything that we basically touch. Could there be another explanation behind this?
I'm sure there could. Human imagination is almost indefinite. Now, the problem is that I think in that case, we might safely assume that the most probable explanation is the right explanation. And the oldest, I think, rooted in the Roman legal system, ancient Roman legal system principle that he who is behind bad things happening, the perpetrator, is the one who benefits most from those bad things happening. And I think in that case, the benefit for the Russian Federation, not only the wave of fear and the wave of uncertainty, would point towards Russian Federation, especially that while I might admit that there might have been some unforeseen consequence of individual systems messing with each other, in case of civilian vessels and civilian aircrafts, I don't believe in accidents like that. In case of military vessels, they are much more resilient and much better protected against any signals that might interfere with their navigational system.
That's a great point. Now, as far as what should NATO do to better prepare itself to be able to combat these active threats that we're seeing?
This is an extremely complicated question, mainly because of the fact that at the core of the hybrid threat, at the core of the hybrid war, there's this issue of blurring of lines between the state of war and the state of peace. The hybrid war is quite often called the war amongst people, so it's the war that, against all of the principles of international humanitarian law and law of armed conflict, by design targets civilian targets and civilian population. Now, it's not only a problem of deciding whether or not an attack of the limited scale in terms of material losses, but quite often hard to count losses in terms of social stability is actually an act of war, and it's a legal cause to go to war. We have much bigger problems with just staying on the right side of the history. I mean, international law directly forbids us for using armed forces offensively, which means that the proof of burden that we were attacked would rest on our shoulders, and it's extremely difficult to do that, especially that some of the targets that we're mentioning, as we have already stated, are civilian targets, and their protection lies within the individual sovereign competence of the individual sovereign states, which means that the idea of international cooperation that would effectively support the protection of national-based targets is in itself a very complicated matter. The matter that would require very solid basis for example, presence of foreign armed forces or foreign law enforcement within the territories of either alliance states or European Union states.
Okay, well, this looks like this hybrid threats are going to continue to increase over time. Hopefully, we can react and counter them in time. Paulina Piasecka, Director at the Terrorism Research Center at Collegium in Civitas, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
And that concludes this edition of World Talks. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time. Good night.